For those who don't know, the NES Classic is basically an emulation box with an NES controller and 30 built-in games. A pretty good selection of games, too. There's too many arcade ports, but it has a dozen genuinely great titles. It really is a good representation of the NES library. And the emulation is, okay. Some sound effects are a little off and there's a bit of input lag, but it's not bad. It even comes with a retro poster. Hooray! But the thing I was most interested in is actually the NES controller it comes with. So, let's take a detailed look. In short, it is definitely inferior to a real old-school NES controller. How is it worse? To start, the cord is half as long, that's not good. Side by side, you can see it's quite similar to an original NES pad, but the feel is where it's first notable. The plastic is harder, has less flex to it. The texture is slightly different, especially noticeable on the back. I prefer the original material as I actually like the slight flex, but that may just be my decades of experience using one. The top texturing is quite close to the original, which is cool. So the body of the controller I like less, but in the end the buttons and D-pad are what matter the most. Well, again, disappointing. The D-pad is a bit mushy. It doesn't pop back or respond quite as fast. The entire D-pad is also a bit lower, more flush to the controller, and can be pressed in significantly in the middle, unlike the original NES D-pad, which has a more prominent central pivot. This makes rocking motions on the NES Classic Controller less responsive. The B and A buttons push down and pop up in a slightly mushier and less crisp way, and because of this, I find it more difficult and less comfortable to rapidly press them. They are also less concave, which I think doesn't feel as nice. The physical material of the D-pad also feels wrong. It seems a little flatter, and the texture is smoother, glossier, which again, I don't like. Taken together, the controller simply doesn't feel or function as good under the thumbs, like an inferior third-party clone. Now, I don't want to be overly harsh. I still think it's a decent controller. The D-pad is better than the one on the Pro Switch controller as one point of comparison. Playing games, it functions adequately. This is not an Xbox 360 D-pad where the entire experience is seriously damaged. But still, this is a 32-year-old controller design. I have been using it for decades. I'm going to notice when it's a downgrade. I didn't expect a superior controller. I just hoped Nintendo could maintain the quality on a reproduction. Simply put, they didn't. Summed up, what does all this mean? If you're not a purist or just want it as a playable collectible, it's a pretty neat little device. Especially now that you can hack it. If you're a hardcore retro gamer, though, I'd go elsewhere. It's not really completely true to the original experience, not in terms of emulation quality with those sound issues, nor in terms of gameplay with the inferior controller and input lag. So, it is cute, but mine is going up on a shelf as little more than an interesting footnote in the NES's history.